Hi, I'm Lisa Tipton, Director of the NYYS Symphony Chamber Music Program.
Hi, I'm Judith Itzel, a coach of the Chamber Music Program and Artistic Director of the Bronx Arts Ensemble.
And I'm Tyler Thomas, Assistant Director of the Chamber Music Program at NYYS Symphony. This is the second video of our series to feature the extraordinary chamber music of underrepresented composers. Each session will highlight 5 composers, and today we will share the stories and short sound bites of selections by Joseph Bologne, Chevalier de St, William Grant Still, Samuel Coleridge Taylor, Undine Smith Moore, and George Walker. Each were pivotal and groundbreaking composers of color.
Joseph Bologne, Chevalier de St, was not only among the most important musicians in Paris during the pre-revolutionary period, but was also a superb all-round athlete and man of arms. St. George is best remembered as the first known classical composer who was of African ancestry, and in 1769 the Parisian public was amazed to see the famous fencer playing as a violinist in Gossek's orchestra. In 1772, St. George created sensation with his debut as a soloist playing his first 2 violin concertos. He was one of the first composers in France to write string quartets, and his symphonies earned the envy of his colleague and rival Mozart. He also founded his own orchestra, which premiered Haydn's Paris symphonies. St. George was widely regarded as the most accomplished man of his age. Have a listen to 2 short segments of his string quartets, one in G major and one in G minor, performed by Chinaghi.
Samuel Coleridge Taylor was a mixed-race English composer and conductor. He sought to draw from traditional African music and integrate it into the classical tradition, which he considered Brahms to have done with Hungarian music and Dvorak with the Bohemian music. This could be seen as an example of urban classical music style that we had mentioned back in our first video. He was well received in the United States, where he toured in 1904, 1906, and 1910, and was compared to the likes of Mahler by the New Yorkers of the time. Some of his best-known works today include Nonette in F minor, his Christmas Overture and Clarinet Quintet, and Deep River, a piece based on a traditional African-American spiritual. Here's a short soundbite from his 5th movement of his piano trio, Opus 59, 5 Negro Melodies. Take a listen.
George Walker was an American composer, pianist, and organist, and a trailblazing man of firsts. He was the first African American to win the Pulitzer Prize for Music, the first African American pianist to play a recital at New York's Town Hall, the first Black instrumentalist to play solo with the Philadelphia Orchestra, and the first Black graduate of the Curtis Institute of Music. Walker's music is firmly rooted in the modern classical tradition, but also draws from African American traditions. His music is full of elegance and dignity. Listen to a short clip from his heartbreakingly beautiful Lyric Suite for String Quartet.
Grant Still was an American composer of nearly 200 works, including symphonies, ballets, operas, choral works, chamber works, and solo works. Often referred to as the Dean of Afro-American Composers, Still was the first American composer to have an opera produced by the New York City Opera, and the first African-American to conduct a professional symphony orchestra in the United States. Still is known primarily for his first symphony, titled Afro-American Symphony, which was, until 1950, one of the most widely performed symphonies composed by an American. Born in Mississippi, he grew up in Little Rock, Arkansas. After serving in the war, he moved to Harlem, where he was involved with other important cultural figures of the Harlem Renaissance. Here's a little bit of his piece called Miniatures for Wind Quintet. Take a listen.
Undine Smith Moore, the Dean of Black Women Composers, was an American composer and professor of music in the 20th century. Moore was originally trained as a classical pianist, but developed a compositional output of mostly vocal music, her preferred genre. Much of her work was inspired by Black spirituals and folk music. Moore was a renowned teacher and once stated that she experienced teaching itself as an art. Towards the end of her life, she received many awards for her accomplishments as a music educator. Her early compositional style did not include any African-American elements, and Moore did not produce much music until 1953, when a marked change in style took place. Moore then transcribed melodies that her mother sang, which gradually inspired her use of African-American spirituals in her music. Have a listen to a short selection from her Afro-American suite.
About the composers and their works, check out at the bottom of the video. In the description box, you will find a link to the entire movements as well as other works by each of the composers. And for our next session video, we'll talk about trailblazing women that fought to be heard in the not too distant past.